Hi there, working homeschool mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And this is episode number 109 of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. If you're new here, welcome. The podcast is full of practical strategies to help you figure out the messy beginning as a new working homeschool mom so that you can take your first steps with confidence. And I am a working homeschool mom coach specifically, so I will be there to walk with you along this exciting, sometimes daunting, but ultimately exciting and rewarding journey of being a working homeschool mom. Today, I have a fantastic guest. I speak to Natalie Burns from Homeschool Teaching Simplified. She's also the creator of the Recharge Homeschooling Summit. And we talk about homeschooling, teaching strategies, teaching mindset, letting go of expectations, and lots of other really juicy topics. Natalie also shares two incredible strategies, one for allowing your kid to practice their critical thinking, and another one for customizing any curriculum so that it can fit your unique situation and your unique child. Such a great episode. I'm sure you're going to absolutely love it. But before we get to the episode, I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast, or you could forward the episode to a new working homeschool mom who is a bit unsure about teaching strategies, if she's qualified to homeschool, and I'm sure it's going to give her a lot of confidence to take those first steps. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hi there, and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm your host, and I am a podcaster, a speaker, a writer, and a homeschooling coach, specifically for working homeschool moms. I've been homeschooling my neurodivergent twin boys since 2017, and I've been a working homeschool mom since 2017. So I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom. I cover things like time management, homeschooling, mindset, and lots of other juicy topics like that. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. And I also welcome experts who can help you on your working homeschool mom journey. I have lots of ways to support you, so be sure to check them out in the show notes. You can download my time audit as your first step to managing your time better. I have a Facebook group for working homeschool moms that you can join as well. And be sure to sign up to my newsletter for weekly updates. And if you need additional support, you can join the WHM Collective, which is a supportive community of working homeschool moms where we delve deeper into topics that are going to help you thrive as a working homeschool mom. Or if you need one-to-one support, be sure to book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I know you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Working homeschool mom, I know how overwhelming it can be to choose a math curriculum for your homeschool. That's why I'd like to tell you about the online math curriculum we've been using for years, ctcmath.com. As far as math curriculums go, it has loads of great features that solve lots of the math issues we've had, and I know a lot of homeschooling families have. Here are just a few of the many features that we really like. Questions are adaptive, which means the interactive questions change in difficulty depending on the student's ability. The program uses a smart algorithm that tracks the student's progress and delivers questions based on their exact needs. The student doesn't even know this is happening, helping them to build confidence and master math concepts. Concepts are delivered through video tutorials and summaries which are clear, complete, and easy to follow. It's like having your very own teacher. This ensures your children understand something before they're asked to practice it. And then for us parents, CTC Math has extensive reports which are so valuable in monitoring your child's progress and spotting any gaps. And they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee if this curriculum is not for you and your family. CTC will provide a full refund, no questions asked. But I think the most important thing is a whole lot less stress when it's math time for both parents and kids. You get to outsource math with confidence, and your kids get a fantastic tailor-made program that makes learning and mastering math enjoyable and positive. Visit CTC Math today to start your free trial. CTC Math is also offering you, listener, an amazing special. When you go to ctcmath.com/MLH, you can get a half price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com com/MLH. So Natalie Burns is a wife and homeschooling mom of 3 on a 2-acre homestead in British Columbia, Canada. As a certified teacher for over 11 years, she taught public high school biology and dance before shifting her desire to homeschool her own children. For the first years, she worked with local homeschool academy as a support teacher before starting her own business, Homeschool Teaching Simplified. Natalie supports homeschooling moms to find freedom to reflect who they are as a family through the way that they teach, so that they can create deeper connection with their children. She's also the creator of the amazing Recharge, which is a 60 minutes of expert strategy so you can overcome homeschooling exhaustion, which you probably have just seen, but if not, be sure to grab the link in the show notes to catch the replay. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie. It's great to chat to you today.
Oh, Charlotte, I am so happy to be here. Like you just mentioned, it was such a privilege to have you on that virtual summit, Recharge. And I couldn't be happier to be chatting with you again in follow-up and to just unpack these ideas so much more, because working homeschool moms have a unique situation, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. So before we actually dive into the topic of homeschool teaching strategies, which you are obviously a specialist in, I would love to ask you about how teaching in the classroom is different to homeschooling. And the reason why is that so many new working homeschool moms feel like they're not qualified to teach if they're not teachers. So how would you answer this very common doubt that many moms feel when they start out?
Oh, we're getting right in there, 2 feet into the deep end at the beginning, huh?
I'm messing around.
Yeah, this is a really important conversation because a lot of homeschooling moms feel this lack of confidence going into it because they think, well, I don't already have this qualification. And how am I going to do this as well as a school system? Because we know that our children deserve the best education and a custom education. And here we are thinking, okay, well, that's homeschooling. For my child, that's what it looks like for them. And now I'm the one who's going to be providing that for them. Do I have what it takes? And the short of the long answer is yes. Yes, of course you have what it takes. You don't need to be certified in order to be an excellent homeschooling mom and an excellent homeschooling teacher, because really, this is about your child so much more than it's about you. So there's the Band-Aid there. This is not about you. This is not about what you make happen in your homeschool. This is about coming alongside your child and supporting them. So I found this out in also a rip the Band-Aid kind of situation. Maybe I'm a rip the Band-Aid kind of person. I taught in the public school system, as you mentioned in the bio, teaching high school, and I loved it. It wasn't because I didn't like it that I switched to homeschooling. It was because as my children were getting older, I realized, oh, I really want to be with them. And this joy that I have, seeing these light bulb moments with all of these children, I want that with my children. I don't want to miss that and have them get that somewhere else. And also, I know that I'm giving my best to these children in my class, but what about my children? Are they going to get a teacher that gives their best? It is kind of hit and miss sometimes. So I really wanted to be the one to provide that. And I was hit with a huge reality check that it wasn't hard to do the homeschooling things, like to actually teach. I already had all these teaching strategies under my belt. I could just apply them easily. But what was hard actually was the emotional aspect. I did not see that one coming because in the classroom, even teenagers, these huge hormonal shifts, it didn't bother me when they were going through stuff, when they were getting challenged and upset and feeling frustrated and shutting down. I could come alongside them and support them, encourage them, and work with them through it. No problem, no change to my own emotional state. But have you seen your child like throw up their hoodie and pout at the kitchen table, make a big stink about a math speed drill? And you're like, come on, I've got other things I need to do here. Like, let's just get through this. And I found myself getting really annoyed, really frustrated that they were being challenged by learning. And then I reflected on this. I looked at myself and I thought, that's not right. that's not the way this is supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be upset because they're going through a natural learning process. What's going on here? And that's when I realized the huge difference that homeschooling moms are undertaking. And that is that these emotional factors and these fears and challenges that are triggered in our children are actually getting triggered in us too. So we can have all of these great strategies, but unless we also know from the inside out how to respond to those moments and how to heal ourselves from our own perspectives of what learning means, then that won't be a sustainable way of interacting with our children.
Yes, I love that. And that's so interesting because I know going back to new homeschool moms, working homeschool moms, when they start out, they think the curriculum is the most important thing. And I mean, I totally get that. Obviously, you get like, a curriculum and you do this on this day and somebody tells you what to do, turn the page, whatever. And I get that that's kind of a feeling of safety, but I've found so much that it's the emotional aspect that can hinder even moving forward. So obviously deschooling is a big buzzword in that respect. So what is your feeling about deschooling? Did you do it? Do you think it's important in terms of kind of unlearning those things that you know about education?
Hmm. It's really interesting because I love this concept of deschooling. And I love how Leah McDermott talks about it being a constant thing, not just like a set period of time, but just a mindset, basically, a perspective from which we view. And the interesting thing is, I sort of stumbled upon this without knowing what it was at the beginning before I dug too deep into what the homeschooling world says things are supposed to look like. Because, yes, we have what the Ministry of Education says, we've got what our friends and family say, we've got what we say based on our experiences, but then also we've got kind of a homeschooling way that people tend to come together and all say this is what it should look like. And these expectations, as we know, are never helpful. And really, what deschooling does is it removes the desire that we have or the need that we have to meet somebody else's expectations. And instead, it places that ownership back on your child, which is so appropriate because it's their learning process. And if you listen to anything that I say, then you probably have heard many times that the way we view learning comes across in our teaching. So that deschooling aspect is good for us. And also, we can't make learning happen for our children. And that's both for us and for our children, because when we think, well, they have to do things in this certain way, well, the curriculum book says we're on to lesson 2 now, so let's get going. When we put this onto our children, we're actually taking the responsibility of learning for them, and they don't learn how to take ownership for themselves. And if they don't learn how to take ownership and responsibility for themselves, they're not going to actually connect with that love of learning, that joy that comes with lifelong learning. They need to know how they think and how they learn so that they can sustain that long term. So deschooling is a really great posture to take so that your child can have more responsibility over their own learning process.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Absolutely. And I think, like you said, so the taking ownership as well. So often, I know when I started, I was quite authoritarian. I was like, okay, this, like, I mean, I think it's probably, if that is what you know from your schooling, then I think it's quite normal to kind of think, okay, this is the way that we should teach. But then being questioned and pushback and things like that happened a lot. And number one, my kids were not involved in what they were learning. So that was one of the big issues, is like, I was like, okay, you're doing this. So that was the first element. And then also the idea of kind of allowing them to question me, because obviously questioning is such an important part about being a successful adult, right? So how can we encourage, or how can we get our kids involved in their learning? So what are some practical things, and how can we encourage them to question us so that we can, I don't know, teach them critical thinking and things like that?
Oh, Charlotte, you make such a great point here. And I want to definitely address how we can really grow that critical thinking. But first, I want to rewind a moment and go back to what you said about being super authoritarian, because so many of us fall into that trap right away. And I think homeschooling moms that are also working definitely are kind of the prime audience of who falls into that trap first, because there's just so much more to juggle. And when you're juggling, I mentioned earlier, like, we got to get through this. I've got other things I need to do. And so you must do this and you must do it now. And this is the right way. And this is what I say. And this is why I say it. And you've got to get on board and think the way I think so that life is easier for me doing homeschooling so we can keep going. However, if we tie that into the concept of who this is for our children to connect to, and it's not about us. And so I think that that's a really great reminder for us that if we're feeling like we're trying to push it along and make it happen, that's a good indicator to take a step back and think, okay, well, how can I allow this to flow more for my child rather than pulling them from the front or pushing them from behind? How can I link arms with them and come alongside them through this? And so this takes me to the critical thinking aspect. If we can start to use some of these learning strategies, then that automatically puts us into that posture. We click into that, and then we start to feel what that feels like. Our children feel that. They understand the different roles. And then we can work on having that bubble out from the inside out and making that become more natural. But really, we need to get a quick win here and change the way we do things, change our approach to teaching, and we're going to see a big difference. And the first thing that I suggest that you change is your purpose. Really consider what that is. And notice that if you made a purpose statement or philosophy or why you homeschool in the past, it probably has changed because learning is all about growth and change. So you're not the same person you were 3 months ago. Your child is not the same they were 3 months ago. So your interactions are not the same as 3 months ago. And therefore, your purpose statement has likely changed too. So your purpose not only includes like, why are you homeschooling, but also how are you going about doing this? And that could come down to making decisions around what kind of curriculum you pick. You know, are we doing subject by subject? Are we doing unit themes? Are we doing outside learning? Are we doing unschooling? Do we not want curriculum? Like, what fits with our family's unique purpose? And so if your purpose includes something like, well, I really want my children to be critical thinkers and creative thinkers. I want them to question ideas. I want them to think for themselves. I want them to be able to process this information and then share their unique ideas with the world in a way that other people can understand. So if that's your purpose, and then your child says to you, well, why do I have to do this? Well, what's your response going to be? Oh, they're questioning me. They're not obeying me. They're disrespecting my authority in the home, and they need to get in line because I'm in charge here. Or does your response then go, oh, good. They are questioning me. They're exercising critical thinking right now. This is my purpose with them. This is what I want them to do. I want them to think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, if they really need to get on board. And maybe this could be an area for compromise. Maybe my child can do something in another area or at another time of day, or we can totally switch up the way this looks in order to really match what feedback they're giving. So even just something as simple as knowing your purpose is going to make that change. And then when you know your purpose and you know, say, you want to create more critical thinking, then you can start to use little strategies like, I really love open-ended questions. So you may be like, wait, what's an open-ended question? What's the difference here? Well, a closed question is something that has like one specific answer. So like a yes or no question or a one-word answer. Like, did you have fun at the zoo? Yes. Conversation shut down. So that's not what we want to go for if we want them to expand their thinking, if we want them to communicate with us, if we want them to feel like they're being heard and want them to keep talking, then we need to ask these open questions. And these open questions instead have multiple ways that they could answer. There's more than one right answer, and maybe there's not even a right answer at all. It's really more about the process of how they're thinking rather than what answer they're actually giving. So in the zoo example, instead of, Did you have fun at the zoo? Yes or no? It's what was the most surprising thing that you saw today? And then if they're like, oh, there wasn't anything surprising, then you could say something that mirrors them to keep them going. So, for example, repeat back those last 1 to 3 words. Nothing surprising. And then leave it out there for them to expand their thinking. Or you could ask them a question such as, if you were the zookeeper, which one of those areas would you want to be in? And that could kind of seem like a yes or no question or a one-word answer. But then if you use that mirroring approach again, like I would like to be with the lions. Ooh, the lions. Tell me more. Then that expands the way that they communicate with you. So this is a really, really simple strategy. It's so easy asking these kinds of questions. And I would argue it's the most effective way to draw out and teach your child critical and creative thinking and communication and connection with you all in one package. So powerful.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And I love those because that is something that somebody who is not a trained teacher could do successfully, right? So I mean, there's a strategy that you can use with confidence without thinking, oh, do I need to be trained to do this particular thing? And that's amazing. I love that. And what about you did kind of touch on it a little bit. So you've taken your kid out of school, out of public school, or you're thinking about homeschooling, you get a curriculum, maybe it doesn't work for you. We tend to double down sometimes, but when you think, okay, how can I overcome this? How can you kind of customize learning for your child so that it suits them? And I guess especially related to curriculum, because like I said, many people do like to have a curriculum, and I can totally get that it's like a safe way to start homeschooling. So how could you customize it so that homeschooling really works for your individual child?
Oh, yes. So many of us really lean into curriculum. Me too. And I created curriculum. I have a degree in education with a specialty in curriculum development and design. And yet I don't develop and design everything myself. I definitely lean into what other people have created because this is a full-time job for other people. They have poured into this and they've done a great job. So I'm happy to collaborate with other ideas and use that. And it also brings other perspectives to the table, which is interesting and good to unpack. Though lots of people are so successful without using any outside curriculum at all. There are people that go through unschooling and no curriculum for their entire education, and it works out just fine. So why then do people use curriculum? And I'm thinking it's because so many find ourselves in this survival mode. Like, I just need to get by. I just need to survive. Maybe I'm not quite at like the end of my rope, but I'm getting close and I need some support. And curriculum is a really great like answer to that, I suppose, a solution. But the problem is we get this done for you curriculum and then we go to do it and you're like, well, this isn't working. I thought this was supposed to be done for me. Why isn't this answering my problem like I thought it would? And this is because you also need to approach how you go about this curriculum. And the how goes back to that purpose that I talked about because you are unique. Your children are unique. Your family dynamic is unique. And there is never going to be one curriculum that is custom for you unless you create it yourself. Now, that is a huge undertaking, and I don't recommend that. So, what I recommend is you take done for you curriculum and then you create your own approach, your own how. And this is where I saw a huge need. And I saw, okay, well, homeschooling moms don't really know how to apply these strategies to make anything work. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you have already, you can make it work. You don't need to switch your curriculum. So that's where I thought, okay, well, if I create Homeschool Teaching Simplified, I can show homeschooling moms how to do this. I can create like a done for you experience with here's all of the tools you need, and all you need to do is plug them in your home. And so one of those that is really great for this situation is understanding the theory of the multiple intelligences. And this is a great, some people think of it as learning styles, I guess, but it's based off of a really established theory in education that there's different ways that people think. And not everybody tends to think the same way. And it's really important to understand that your children may not think about things the same way you do. They're not going to connect with information necessarily the same way you do. For example, you may be an auditory processor. Maybe, I mean, you're listening to a podcast right now, so there's a good chance there. And you process information well by listening to it. But there's going to be somebody else that is pulling up your transcript online, Charlotte, and they're reading through it because they're visual, or they're watching a video of it because they need to see it, and they need to see like the way that we nod our heads or make hand motions to really connect with what this idea is. So there's not just audio and visual, there's also things like musical, naturalistic, there's logical, mathematical. And so interpersonal. So when we understand the way that we think and learn, and then the way our child tends to think and learn, it allows us to adapt and shift the way that we approach the way that they take in information, and then the way that they showcase their learning for something. Let's take an example here, because you may be like, oh, that was a lot. As an example, let's say that you're reading through something for history, and your child is reading a paragraph and this history is just not connecting. And you're like, what did you just read? Tell me something that stood out to you, which is a great open-ended question. Tell me something that stood out to you. And they may be like, I don't know. I just read this 4 times and like, it's just going over my head. I have no idea. Try taking that concept that's in that paragraph, find a YouTube video about it, and have them watch like a clip from a documentary. If you're looking at motion and physics and you're looking at spin and forces, go outside and go on a swing and feel it. Then have your child explain to you in their own words what they learned from that. And you may find that if you can tap into their way of thinking, the natural way that they're intelligent, I suppose, the way that their learning style really tends to fit, they're going to get so much more out of it. And then you can take the curriculum you already have and show it to your child and allow them to explain it back to you in a way that they get. One problem though, if you have to answer to like the Ministry of Education about what they learned and your kid's on a swing spinning, you're like, look, they learned about motion. It's really hard to like justify that, I suppose, in your own records if you have to record keep. Some people do, some people don't. So what I recommend in that situation is a quick little tip that you can also audio record your child explaining what they learned, and then send that to your teacher, put that in your file so that then now you have your child showcase the way they want to. However, you also have the evidence that you need.
Yes, that is fantastic. And I think also kind of that is deschooling is a good time to do that as well, because I guess that's when you are observing how your kid learns, because once you figure that out, and that took me ages, I must be honest, and it was resistance all the way, but once you figure that out, it can be smooth sailing for a while until you have to readjust again, obviously. I'm going to put people off by saying that, because obviously it's an ongoing process, isn't it? That you're always learning and you're always adjusting and tweaking and things like that. All right. So thanks so much, Natalie. This is some fantastic, really useful strategies that new working homeschool moms can implement immediately. But before we finish off, maybe you can tell everybody where is the best place for them to connect with you online, and if there's anything. Okay, obviously we have the summit in the show notes, but anything else you'd like to share or to offer to working homeschool moms?
Yes, thank you. The website that you can find more information about everything is homeschoolteachingsimplified.com. I'm on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, all at Homeschool Teaching Simplified. And I would love to offer you a free 3-day challenge that you can go through to learn how to ask these open-ended questions. So this is just 20 minutes a day for 3 days plus 10 minutes of Q&A, and you can experience what this looks like to actually put into action in your own home. So I can talk about open-ended questions a little bit on here, but if I can unpack it with you for 3 days, then I know that you're going to feel so equipped and confident that you can just pull these out naturally from the inside out. And that will really bring in that ease that you're looking for in your homeschool day, that natural, intuitive approach, that one that increases connection with your child. So I would love to leave that link as well so that you can join us for that free 3-day challenge.
Oh, that is amazing, because then you're going to be able to see how to do it in practice. That is really, really fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience is going to love that. Thank you so much for your time today, Natalie. It's been wonderful to speak to you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for sharing such valuable information.
Thank you, Charlotte. It's always a pleasure to get to talk with you.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Please let me know what your greatest takeaway was. You can reach out to me on Instagram at charlottejones247 or on my website at mylittlehomeschool.com, or you could even drop me an email at hello@mylittlehomeschool.com. I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It will help spread the news about being a working homeschool mom, and in that way we can build this wonderful supportive community together. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care.